Hello everybody and welcome to Dimensional Walking. I'm Rainbow, and today's video we're going to be talking about something that actually a subscriber had recommended. And so here it is, and we're going to be talking about rituals and ceremonies. Now I'm not going to go into detail about how to do ceremonies and rituals because I don't know if information gets out, if somebody's going to use it for whatever nefarious purposes. And I know that our subscribers are the most amazing people on the planet. So I'm not talking about any of you guys. I'm talking about if anybody else happens to check this video out and, they come across some information. But rituals and ceremonies have been a part of my lifetimes. And I truly believe that the reason why at this point in my life where I don't go into a lot of detail about rituals and ceremonies, and I don't actually, when I do them, I make them simple, is because I truly believe that when I was in Egypt, because I have many memories of being a priest and priestess in Egypt, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But I went through so much with what memories I have, and I remember the feelings of just continually doing ceremony throughout the whole day, that now in my life I have simplified a lot of things, and that's just one of them. As a medicine woman, I think that the words that you use, the intention that you have, is the most powerful tool that you use. The crystals are great, and the stones that you use are great. It's not really about anything that is used on an altar that puts out the intention any faster, I should say, than anything else. The most important thing that you have is your words and the thought process that goes behind those words, pushing your words out to the universe to get across what you want to get across. So I want to talk to you about the different kinds of rituals and ceremonies that there are, and I don't always want it to be about anything dark, because God knows we go through enough of that with movies where evil lives on in the second and third sequels that happen, and I don't want to do that. So for everything negative or dark, there's something opposite of it that can be done to squash it. So there's always that battle of light and darkness, and it's always there. So you have to understand that whenever you do rituals and ceremonies. So what I did is I just put down a little list here of ceremonies and rituals that can be done. There are hundreds upon hundreds of ceremonies that can be done for any purpose, for any reason, dark and light, obviously. But when I do rituals and ceremonies, the intent behind it, I try to make it extremely clear beforehand what I want. So I usually will write down what it is that I'm trying to convey to the universe and to the angels and to the guides, so I can get some help or get some kind of resolve regarding a situation and a problem, or maybe I'm hoping to get an awesome, amazing job in January. So there you go. I'm going to be doing a ritual and ceremony for that. I'm going to be doing two separate things to intend the perfect job for me, because this last job that I had, though it was really interesting and I learned so much, it was not for me. So now I want to go find something that is me. Do whatever kind of ritual and ceremony you want to do. Just make sure the intention behind it is something that you wouldn't be afraid to tell your friends about, okay? So, the different kinds of rituals and ceremonies that I have here, I kind of grouped them together. The first group have to do with healing and cures. That's really important because I've done that for my family, actually. I've done that for myself. So if somebody has a problem, I will try to go in and do something for them. I've done healing candles as well as far as the ceremony, because I like doing candles along with this. I've actually done something with my sister where we were actually doing a candle and a ceremony for a relative who had breast cancer. And it was amazing what happened with the candle and the ceremony, and she was doing well. I believe that that good intention doesn't hurt, letting the angels know that you have a loved one, that you want the best for them. Then there's the immortality, which has to do with Egyptian magic. And I think I went over the necromancy aspect of this as far as with the pagan aspect to it, and then the darker aspect to it. The immortality with the Egyptians is the afterlife and the preparation for the afterlife. I don't know if we prepare for the afterlife nowadays. I don't think we really do. Nobody wants to talk about the death and what happens afterwards. And some people do, but for the most part, most people don't want to. So I think it's important to honor every aspect of life, which even means the end of life. And I think the Egyptians were all over that, and I think most of you who have experienced any of the TV shows about the Egyptian culture, a little bit about what I talked here, will totally understand that. There's ceremonies that I think are special where I like to do some and specifically ask archangels and specific light worker guides. So if you have a spirit guide who you know at a certain point was here on the planet, who is a human guide, then I think it's important you can also go directly to them and just say, hey, whatever it is that you're going for. There's also protection. So you can go to any of the archangels, any of the angels, the guides, however you want to say it, you can go to them for protection. And if the ceremony is done in the way where there's integrity to it, it is always answered back, always. There's never been anything where it's like, well, I did a ceremony and prayer and it wasn't answered. I think that it's the intention behind what it is you ask that is the most important thing. And it's not just because of the movie that came out. When I learned everything about ritual and ceremony when I was in my younger 20s, the medicine woman aspect of my life, it was important. Words were important. I mean, I think that the Native Americans are so eloquent in the words they choose, and they're so connected to Gaia, to Earth, that they know exactly how to do ceremony. So I think that's important to understand. The words you use are powerful, and that's the most potent thing going out into the universe, because they come from you. They come from who you are, the essence, the core of your soul. Another group can be used for different reasons is dimensional. Now, I'm a dimensional walker, and I have gone into different realities and stuff. And I think it's important to understand that connecting into these other dimensions and realities doesn't have to necessarily always be so scary. But if there is somebody there who you can connect to, I don't think it's a bad idea to connect with them or try to get in communication with them. So that's what I have done. And then this one is the communing, the contact with different types of relationships with whatever being that it is that you want to connect to. It doesn't have to necessarily be for asking or wanting. It can be for just, hey, how are you? I'm Rainbow. It's good to see you, or I'd like to get to know you, or whatever. So if you have an idea of who it is that you want to contact, just put it out there. Let's see. We have portals. Now, from Loki, what I understand about portals is this is where when you do your ritual and ceremonies, you do meditation. So I think that meditation is important aspect of rituals and ceremonies, because you have to get yourself in a state of grace. You got to get yourself in a state of balance before you go into ritual and ceremony anyway. So meditation is a good way of doing that. And it doesn't have to be straight off sitting cross-legged somewhere. I love going for walks. That's my meditation. I like going for long drives. That's my meditation. So figure out a way that you like to do your meditation. And then there's frequency rituals and ceremonies. If you want to raise your vibration, a lot of people constantly ask, how do I raise my vibration? Well, one way of raising your vibration is to be aware of where you're at in the present time. So a frequency ritual or ceremony basically is an asking to whoever is your spirit guide to help you raise up your vibration. And I think being aware of your vibration and understanding where you are as far as how you're balanced out you are in your core, your inner core, helps decide who you're going to ask. Now, in frequency rituals and ceremonies, I love going to Gaia because I'm so connected to her that if I say, hey, I have to balance out better, I'm not, my frequency is a little off, something's wrong, I want to raise my vibration, you have the tree people, you have the water, you have the air, you have every aspect possible around you where you can go and you can ask, and you have to ask in respect. That's huge. You can't be a know-it-all and say, oh, I'm so and so and I'm asking and I expect you to give it to me. It doesn't work that way. You have to have humility when you do ritual and ceremony. You cannot be a snotty person that goes out there expecting something to come your way. Now there are the darker ones. I did put them in here. There's the curses. Curses, when a person does a curse, all they're doing is turning it tenfold to them, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't think it's good to do curses. I don't think it's good to wish ill on other people. Look, have there been people who tested me? Sure as heck they have. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out karma. And karma is a biatch, and you just don't want her coming at you, because she's going to come at you. She has a memory like an elephant. She doesn't forget anything, and she's going to come back and nail your butt when it's going to be the most beneficial to learn the lesson. So just remember, when you do dark stuff, it's going to come back to bite you in the butt. It ain't worth it, okay? It's not. If you have to protect yourself and defend yourself, that's another story. But when you're just going out hurting people, I don't think that's a good idea. There's the cult aspect, and this was interesting. I'm talking about the Key of Solomon. And King Solomon actually was the one who put out spells and different types of ceremonies to do. There is an actual book called Key of Solomon, and I'm going to tell you in a little bit what happened to me when I got this book. There's the power sorcery aspect, where it's for power, gaining power. But just remember that you already lose when you ask for power, because if you ask someone for power, someone who's more powerful than you, that's kind of ridiculous. And I'm not talking in regards to, let me put it this way, I'm talking in regards to anybody who wants power for selfish gains. So if you ask an entity that's more powerful than you, they're going to make you a slave. That's just the way they work. You're asking a mentality, an intelligence to help you out. Well, they're going to try to do everything possible to make you a slave and to gain from you, and then they won't care. They don't have to. If you have a contract with something that's dark, you've lost it. You're already done for. There's the skinwalker aspect. Now, in this particular ritual and ceremony, it's about reanimation, and that's as far as I will go on that, because this is a very dark ritual, and it doesn't need to be talked any further than that. I don't want to say any more about that. Then there's the possession aspect. And it has to do with voodoo and other types of ancient, and there are a few pagan rituals and ceremonies that can actually bring this about. We're talking also about necromancy as well. And this is where the zombie aspect comes from, and the enslavement of the soul. And that's where the Satanists come in. Now, this is about groups and cults that actually use this to enslave a soul or to take over a body. And that's very, very dark. And but for all this darkness that I just talked about, it has its opposite. So thank God that the medicine men and women and shamans can actually counter all of this. And the grace of light and goodness, we can overcome all of that. That's a given. So if you don't think that's possible, I feel sorry for you, because for everything dark, there's something light that can counter it. That's just the way it is in the universe. The next group is Wiccan ceremonies, fairy, the forest dwellers, the druidic way, which when I was in my 20s, that really intrigued me because they don't write anything down. They memorize it. So they take in different aspects of learning about Mother Nature and about, I guess, their way of life, and they pass it on through knowledge, through words. And I think that there's something to be said for that, because they know how powerful words are. And then obviously I talked about Gaia. I think it's always important to involve her in your life and with everything that you do, and be grateful for her. There's the Celtic Samhain, and then that includes Beltane as well. And then there's the Remembrance ceremony, which is our seasonal changes. So that's really key here, to be appreciative, even if you're not into winter, which I'm not a winter girl. I still appreciate when winter comes because it's necessary for nature. The Egyptian aspect. Now, I was an Egyptian, like I told you, for many lifetimes. So the Egyptians, boy, we had every kind of ceremony possible throughout the day. Now, there were priests and priestesses who were trained for the moon, to the moon aspect of ceremony, and then the sun. I'm not talking about the deities, Sekhmet, Isis, Bastet. I'm not talking about the god and goddess deities. I'm talking about the different aspects that had to do with everyday life. Obviously, included into all of this was the ritual and ceremony of the deity in which the priest and priestess were connected to. But there was a specific group that were geared towards the moon, and a certain group that were geared towards the sun. And it didn't mean that the men were the sun and the women were the moon. It was half and half. There were different groups, men and women, in both. So just because it didn't have anything to do with gender, because the moon and the sun have nothing to do with gender. We've made the moon and the sun something about, the sun is more of the men and the moon is more than women. Both affect us equally as men and women. Okay, and the nature is just understands this totally. That's why I like the Native American way. They totally get this as well. So the different types of ceremonies that you could have as an Egyptian priest or priestess are numerous. These are just the ones I remember. There are many, some in between. And then when the pharaoh would have his harvest celebration or his fertility celebration, or there was famine and problems, we would do extra ceremonies just to ask the gods and goddesses to have mercy on us or whatever. There were those in-between ceremonies that we had to do. But we had the waking ceremony. We had the sun rising. Now, waking is different than sun rising. It's not the same. Okay, and maybe down the line I'll go into more detail about all of these, but for right now I just want to give you the gist of kind of what life was being a priest and priestess in Egypt. Then there was mid-morning, and let's see here, and then there was the sun above. So that was probably, 12, maybe a little after 12 o'clock. And then there was in the sun above, there was the ceremony and rituals for the god and goddesses for overseeing the faithful. So that's when we would include, I remember us including a specific ceremony added onto the other ceremony of the sun above. And then there is then here I have early afternoon, so this would probably be 2 o'clock. Then there is after early afternoon, then you have other ceremonies which could include before twilight, the aspect of the giving of water, oh my God, there's so many that I remember us having to do that it was nuts. And then you have the end of day before twilight. That's like, just before twilight. And I noticed that my favorite time is around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And there must be something to that from my past lives as an Egyptian priest and priestess, because for some reason that's my favorite time of the day. But I like it just as the end of the afternoon. It's just when I used to work cattle, I used to love being on my horse riding out around that time. Well, when it wasn't hot. And then we have twilight, because you're going to have twilight, right? And then you're going to have the sun setting, because the sun setting is really important. So it's not, twilight is different, because twilight is when the sun and the moon kiss for that split second where just the two are together. So that has nothing to do with the sun setting. And then we have the moon rising ceremony. So there were just so many aspects of the different ceremonies. Now remember too that the priests and priestesses were astrologers. They knew the placement of where planets were. They knew the placement of, they knew the stars. They knew the positioning of where they lived according to the stars and according to the planets. So they were well read. They were very knowledgeable in that aspect. I don't have much interest in astrology at this point in my life. I'm more of a tarot kind of gal, but I have a great respect for astrologers. I really do. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I know that when the time and the day we're born, the placement of the stars, the placement of the sun and the moon, and then the ley lines of where we live, all that comes into play. That basically tells these amazing astrologers who you are as a person. So I think there's something to be said for that. Now, the priests and priestesses, like I said, in Egyptian times were astrologers. They knew how to read the sky. Then, after you have your twilight, you have what I call the opening of worlds. So this is when the beginning of when spirits tend to come through and they start to roam. This is portal time as well. Portals come through. And then there's what I call the scary night. This is I think that 3 o'clock or whatever time frame when the scary spirits come out. There were ceremonies for protection for that. And then we have, then it goes right back to moon rising. So then we have moon rising ceremony. Let's see, the moon rising ceremony is just right after twilight. So that I have that misplaced, but moon rising is a part of that as well, and sun setting. So that whole aspect that I just told you is and there's so many more that you could add into that. I mean, it's just like these are just the top of my head things, ceremonies and rituals that I remember that we used to do on a daily basis. Now this is on a daily basis, because when you were a priest and priestess, this is what you did. This is actually what you did. This was your life. This is how you lived your life. So that's why now when I do ritual and ceremony, I simplify it. I make it simple, and I'm not going to do it 20 times a day. I'm going to do it once a day and try to get something going, as far as if I promise somebody that I'll do some kind of ritual or ceremony for them. Now, that the important thing here that and this is, I just want to make it, let's see here. I just want to make it clear that this didn't include the rituals and ceremonies for the god and goddesses. That's tacked on. So if I love Sekhmet. She's my goddess. So I'm sure that the priests and priestesses had their favorite gods and goddesses. So who knows how many times in the day that I would give an offering to my favorite goddess or god and ask for something. So you include that in between all the other aspects. And obviously Isis, and Sekhmet, and Hathor, Bastet, all of them. So there's so many gods and goddesses. So a priest and priestess could probably, oh my goodness, there's probably 5 to 10 that they would probably give offerings to on a daily basis. And this is just the family way of life too. Families were like that. Families were like, this is what they would do. They'd get the offerings and make sure that they did this. Now, there was the pharaoh Akhenaten, and he sent her to sound the sun god Aten. Now, the important thing I wanted to note here, I was there when the priests battled Akhenaten. And it wasn't just the men, it was the women. But I specifically was a little boy, and I remember watching this battle. And I remember the big piles of gold over by the pyramid that had all the old deities of all the gods and goddesses. And I remember actually going to one of the piles and actually picking up a gold statue. And I remember that I knew that the soldiers weren't going to be able to win this battle because the priests were pretty pissed off. And so when you have so many lifetimes, or for me, so many lifetimes of doing these types of ceremonies and stuff, and you take that away from any group of people, because I think, and this is just my personal feeling, I truly believe that I was in Egypt multiple times doing the work of a priest and priestess, and that the Egyptians were able, I don't know how they did this, I don't remember how we did this, but I think that they called back to the priests and priestesses to come back into new bodies to be able to go and do the rituals and ceremonies. Because you can't learn all of this in one lifetime. There's just no possible way. It had to be something that is innately, that the soul knew, that when the soul was born into another body, the soul brought this information with them. So that's why Akhenaten wasn't going to work with what he wanted to do with the one god. Because at that point you had so many hundreds and hundreds of years of people being able to worship many gods and goddesses. So you couldn't just take that away from them like that. So I do remember that. Now, let's go back to the Key of Solomon. And the Key of Solomon is something that it's known as a book of spells. And it's instruction for incantations and rituals, and for you to be able to call upon or control spirits and demons, which I find very interesting, because you can't control those specific beings and entities. You just can't. I mean, we all know that at this point in society, that they're not going to be controlled. They'll control you. Only way that something could be done is if a group of priests and priestesses gathered around And then you had another set behind that who could block this entity from coming out. So there is a way to do a ritual and ceremony with water, with priests and priestesses who actually are very good at what they do, but then having another wall of protection behind them to make sure that something that's dark can't get out. That was usually done at specific times of year. It had to do with a lot of different aspects of the intention of why something was going to be controlled and what questions were going to be asked of it. And the purpose of why that was being done had everything to do with whoever was in control or in power. That type of ritual and ceremony it can be done to this day, but it takes a lot of ability and know-how to be able to contain something that dark. So, when I actually had the Key of Solomon, I actually bought it. And this is back in 2011. And as soon as I got it and I started looking through it, I didn't get it because I wanted to do rituals and ceremonies and spells because I wanted to talk to something creepy or dark. I got it because I was intrigued, because I had heard that a lot of the elites have their kids read the Key of Solomon and understand the ceremonies of the Key of Solomon. So when I did that, when I heard that, I went ahead and got it, and I was like, that's interesting. I want to see if that's really true. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, I remember years back seeing a video and actually reading about it. As soon as I got this book, the room got cold and there was darkness. It's like light stopped coming through the windows of our bedroom. And I got a really bad feeling in my gut. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be going through this book anymore. I'm not going to read, because what I didn't want to do is start reading words that are part of a ritual and ceremony or a spell and start something ignorantly, because I'm just reading through this book. And I'm like going, well, maybe it's not a good idea for me to be reading this. That's kind of what people do with Ouija boards. There's people do it for fun and they think it's all laughing games until something actually is invited in. So I think the important thing here that I'm trying to get across is to understand that why you're doing what you're doing. You have to, it's important to understand why you're doing ritual and ceremony. Now, something else. I'm going to give you a few tips, okay, before I go. Now, make sure the crystals and stones resonate with your frequency. That's why if I do a ceremony and I use crystals and stones that resonate with me, I'll get a result geared more towards me. And if you did the same ceremony with the same crystals and stones, and those crystals and stones don't resonate with you, you're not going to get the same result. It's just not going to happen. So you have to understand that when you do ritual and ceremony, you do want to do these little blessings. You want to do blessings as well. That you have to know what resonates with you. Okay, that's really important. So I have a few pieces here that I just got this one. This is quartz with amethyst. Now, with this one, I work well with amethyst and obviously quartz. For me, these two, if I want to intend something or use them during a ceremony, with this particular one, I haven't used this yet, but with amethyst and crystal, because I have other pieces that I have used together that are like this, I usually get a pretty good result. But this is for me. This is what works for me. Carnelian is another one that works well for me. So you have to find out what resonates with you. You can't just say, oh, because Rainbow uses these, this is what I should use. You have to go to a crystal store. You have to look and see which of the stones and crystals speak to you in order for you first, before you can do ceremony. And then I have my tiger eye here. So I've used tiger eye since I was in my 20s. So this is a great stone that I use, and I use it also with onyx because I like them because they're good blockers of negative energy. So if I'm doing a ceremony and I want to block out anything negative that can come around me while I'm doing my ceremony, I make sure I have my tiger eye and onyx if I want it around. I also work with selenite too. Now, the one stone that I don't use, it gets me in trouble, is rose quartz. And the times that I have done ceremony with rose quartz and I've actually worn it to work in places, I have gotten in trouble because I speak my truth when I shouldn't. And so I know that if I do ceremony, I try not to have rose quartz around me. I just don't. Also, don't speak to what you fear. Don't speak to who you fear. If you're doing a house cleansing, and because your house is haunted, and you're doing the cleansing, and you're telling whatever to leave, please, please have someone come in and do it for you. Because if you ask something to leave in fear, you've just given it power and control over your household. So, I mean, I'm queen bee in my home. I don't care where I'm at. No uninvited spirit squatters are allowed. I don't care if the shadow I don't care who it is. If I don't invite it, it can't be there. And I'm not going to invite those dudes. Not happening. So don't do anything in fear. That's the biggest takeoff for today. Don't do anything in fear. If you can't do it, have somebody who can do it for you. If you want to do rituals and ceremonies, understand that the stones and the crystals that you use have to resonate with your frequency. Also understand that for every cure, there's a curse, there's a cure. For everything negative, there's something positive, because they are constantly battling each other out. Just make sure what you do is in light and love and the beauty of this planet and this world and humanity. Don't do anything dark. That's the reason why I'm not going into detail about any of this. So, that was a lot. It's stuff I like. I don't know if everybody, I would have probably done 2 videos, but my second videos don't do well for some reason. Maybe because I babble on too much. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Like I've told you, I'm going to be doing more videos and I'm around more, so I will get to your comments quicker than I used to. And I want to thank you all for coming to our channel and subscribing and to watching our videos. Michael and I greatly appreciate all that you guys have given us, which is, you just the fact that you follow us and that you're willing to listen to what we have to say is pretty huge, and we greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much. We are very grateful for you guys, and you take care, and I hope you are all doing well this holiday season, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.